Okay. So again, thank you this morning, or thank you for joining me this morning. I truly appreciate it. Essentially, this is a three-part interview. The first, or three segments, if you will. The first segment is more logistical items. The second is uh, talking a bit about organizational assimilation, and then the final segment is on job satisfaction. Um, so we'll start with the first question, which is essentially, what corporate function do you work in, and what type of work do you do?
Sure. I work in human resources, and uh, my team oversees the hiring strategy for U.S. restaurants. So, really, I work very closely within the hourly labor world.
Okay, awesome. And then initially, what are some of the things or reasons that attracted you to your current employer?
Yeah, I would say some of the things that were most appealing, it's a uh, well known, respected brand. I think it has kind of the reputation of being a fun brand. I love the idea that, um, everyone kind of has a McDonald's memory, from when you're a kid or taking your own kids there. I love that aspect of it. And from my role, I really liked the idea of being able to impact a lot of people at once because of how many people in America work at McDonald's at one point or another.
Okay, awesome. And so then, shifting gears a bit, are you aware of any diversity and inclusion initiatives at your current place of work?
Yes. We recently expanded our DEI team, probably increased it by like threefold. And so some of that work is still being built out, but the company has done a few different things with DEI. We have committed to certain metrics for our senior leadership positions to ensure that we have more diverse representation across our senior leadership teams, and have bonus or incentive pay tied to that as well. We also have several different employee resource networks. We updated our values last year to include, we actually completely overhauled our values. And one of the values that we included was around inclusion. There's another one around community that helps kind of weave DEI efforts through a lot of our work, whether it's in the restaurants or whether you're supporting corporate staff.
Got
And
it.
then on the restaurant side, we were very conscious of DEI efforts through our hiring processes. We look for different opportunities to remove bias through the hiring process on the staff side as well as the restaurant side, as
Okay,
one example.
got it. And you mentioned ERNs, or uh, can you explain what that is? Uh,
I'm sorry, what was that?
Employee resource networks. Sorry.
Yes, our employee business networks. Those are essentially diversity and inclusion groups. Um, we have one for like a women's mentorship network. We have our African American employee resource group. We have a Hispanic resource group. We have one for military, working moms. Um, so they work more so, I would say, many times in a mentorship capacity.
Okay.
There are discussions where we kind of talk about, the issues you're facing. So however you belong to these groups. So we have a pride group that's very active too. Forgot about that. But ultimately there's a lot of, mentorship and kind of intentional learning, I
Yeah.
would say, facilitated through these.
Awesome. Okay. And then, so shifting gears just a little bit, what does inclusion mean to you then?
Great question. So inclusion is it's actually a topic I talk a lot about with my team, because I think it kind of continues to be an area of opportunity at a lot of companies, including my own. I think inclusion takes on many forms. It's making sure you have representation of all genders, all ages, all ethnicities on your project teams, and making sure that you're getting input from a wide variety of experiences to really make a robust solution that's well informed. I also see inclusion as being accepting of everyone's backgrounds and everyone's personal lives. You know, for example, we have working moms on our teams. It's okay to go pick up your kids at 4 p.m. or 3 p.m. You don't have to ask permission for it, things like that. Another thing my team talks about a lot with inclusion is making sure that in our meetings, we hear from everyone and recognize that some people tend to be more shy than others, and we try to facilitate really safe environments that everyone feels comfortable speaking their mind, and that when people do get challenged, everyone does it respectfully. So we just try to we'll gently pull someone into the conversation if they haven't really spoken up or shared their thoughts yet. So that's another way we look at inclusion.
Got it. Okay. And this is the last question of this segment, do you feel included or that you belong at your current place of work?
Sometimes, not all the time.
Okay.
There's it's going to be a growing process for our company as a whole. I think there are a lot of emotions around inclusion, and the company is still trying to figure out how to, probably appreciate differences, and also find more commonalities between people. So I would say, typically in project work, I feel very included. I think we've done a better job of getting different perspectives from everyone across the company, especially working cross-functionally. There are, when I don't feel included, it's because I tend to have a more introverted personality than my peers. And I think a lot of times the peacock of the groups tend to get called on or get the attention. And I think ultimately, I hope in corporate America, we spend more time kind of elevating the introverts that are still delivering and, they're successful, but they might not be the loudest person in the room.
Got it. Okay. Awesome. And so now we'll shift to organizational assimilation. You let me know if you know what that is. If not, I can provide a little bit of context for you and we can move from there.
Yeah, if you could provide a little context, that'd be great.
Awesome. So organizational assimilation is essentially the place where the organization introduces their culture, norms, expectations to the new hire, and thus allowing for this to become a partnership, right? Where the employee is then able to exchange those same things with them. So, expectations, culture, what they're used to and things of that sort. So it's really that introduction point to the company, to the employee of the company as a new hire. So in sort of digesting that information, what does organizational assimilation sort of mean to you, I guess, at your current employer? The follow-up question to that will be, and if you tie these in, I understand what your first 90 days sort of look like at your organization.
Yeah. So kind of knowing that we have very robust onboarding plans. So they are created by what we call our center HR team. So they they're I guess, call them our talent team. We have kind of like very digitally driven onboarding plans that engages employees before they start through their first year at the company. And it's kind of a constant drip of our values and making sure that, the employee feels supported and is hitting milestones through their first 365 days. And then at a team level, we have templates that we use, and templates that our teams have also customized to support onboarding. But when you support the restaurants, it gets pretty complex, balancing the norms of kind of supporting the restaurants and then working within the larger McDonald's corporate staff context as well. So we do try to stick to a template that kind of helps with, helping employees achieve milestones along the way so that we don't necessarily overwhelm them in their first 90 days. We spend the first 30 days very focused on observations, learning. We intentionally do not assign a lot of work because we really want the new employees to just kind of digest the complexities of the organization. And we even say off the bat, you're not going to feel like you really understand what's going on here until you're about a year and a half in, and it's normal. So that's kind of one way we approach it. We're also very big on one-on-one meetings. We started that out as part of our new onboarding plan. And those are very intentional as well. First 30 days are really your key stakeholders, the people you'll be talking to all the time. And then between 60 and 90 days, some of your more extended teams. And I can say from experience, since I started a new role at the organization in November, kind of went through this onboarding plan. It was very different when I started almost 3 years ago. It really helped establish those relationships in the first 90 days so that when we did need to jump right into cross-functional work, I had already had some of those relationships built because of those very intentional one-on-one meetings.
Got it. Okay.
I hope that answered your question. Was that
No, it does.
along the right lines? Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. And so, do you identify with any of your organization's core values? I know you mentioned a few, I think a little bit earlier, inclusion and
Yeah, I can list them off. Yeah.
ones that you sort of identify with. Yeah.
Yeah. So our 5 core values are serve, inclusion, integrity, community, and family. When they rolled out, just to give some context, we had a lot of discussions as a team, probably more so than others since we're HR. And a lot of us agreed, these values didn't feel like a big change. This is how we work. We've now just we've put some words behind it. The values that I probably identify with most are serve, inclusion, and integrity. Serve because it helps bring the whole McDonald's 3-legged stool to life between company, franchisees, and suppliers, all working together to, figure out a way to serve customers, keep them happy, and keep them coming back to McDonald's. So I strongly identify with that one. That drives a lot of our work. And then with inclusion and integrity, inclusion just because I feel strongly, I think that's, one of the bigger opportunity areas. And I think it's important that we think about inclusion as something, very holistic, from representation to equitable opportunities to hearing from everyone in a meeting and making sure that, we facilitate a strong culture. Frankly, our broader team has had some significant culture challenges over the past year or two, and inclusion is a big reason why. So it's something I'm very passionate about working on with our team this year and next and ongoing. And then integrity is also an important one for me, because integrity is the one, if I had to think about one value that kind of uplifts the other four, it would be integrity. Because if you're not doing your work with integrity, then there's a problem. If you're not serving our customers, our stakeholders with, with dignity, with honesty, you're doing a disservice. And it's just not going to work at the end of the day. And same with the other values. I just strongly believe integrity underpins all of the work we do.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And then do you feel, um, or just, as a woman or just as a person, do you feel that you were assimilated similar to your peers?
I do, but I also think it's a function of being in HR, where we're so heavy on women. I don't know if I could say the same with some of my counterparts in operations and technology, when there's a little less female representation, especially on the operations side. I know, my company's doing, I think a good job of really elevating and building up the capabilities of underrepresented groups in those functions. But I do think it would be harder to assimilate. But we kind of, to give an example, we call out progress. I mean, I work with our technology and operations teams closely, and we had a tech call, and it was all women, and we said, whoa, we have a group of badass women on this call, like, and you don't always see that with technology. So we celebrate it when we see it too.
Awesome. Okay. And so we've closed out that segment. Now we'll move to the last segment, which is on job satisfaction. And so the first question is merely, are you satisfied at your current employer? Why or why not? The follow-up question to that is your top three reasons why you're satisfied, and or not satisfied. So I just wanted to mention them together, but you can take it how you wish. You can answer. Yeah.
No, good to know. So I would say on the whole, yes, I am. And the reasons for that are, for one thing, there's a lot of opportunity if you're willing to put in the work. My company definitely rewards folks that are hardworking. It's not that you have to work super late hours, but if you are very intentional about working towards the business goals and building relationships and taking initiative, you'll be rewarded for that. The second piece, why I would say I am, is that I'm fortunate to really see the impact of some of my work. When I go to a restaurant, it's pretty cool to see the advertisements you work on there, or people got hired through a system that you support. So I can physically see the impact, or how my work shows up in restaurants. And I also work with a lot of great people, a lot of people that are committed to the brand. People love the brand, and it's overall kind of a positive, motivational environment. There's definitely some challenges that I think about in the long term. Our stakeholders are tough. Working with franchisees is a different beast, and it's not lost on us that there are you don't have to deal with that particular challenge at many other companies. So there is that in the back of my head, but on the whole, those other three factors are really kind of driving, why I come back every day.
Got it. Got it. Awesome. And so then we talked a little bit about the employee resource groups, but are you involved in any activities sort of within your organization, but outside of your work?
Yes, I think those employee resource groups, they definitely operate outside of our work. So I'm involved in a few of them. I'm an active participant in our women's mentorship group. So our group meets every other month, and we kind of talk about challenges on our teams, what's working, leadership, things of that nature. And then what I try to do across the other employee business groups is they typically hold several quarterly webcasts. So whether it's Pride, which we have next week, I always attend those to be informed of what those groups are working on.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, learn something and be more conscious of the experiences of everyone at our company. Like, we had a really great webcast this week for Juneteenth, and it was very insightful. The business groups they typically get some really great external speakers on some of these webcasts, and you always walk away learning something.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Awesome. And so you spoke a little bit about this, but and it sounds like you're active, so maybe we answered this question. So the question was, are you aware of any mentorship opportunities available at your place of work? And if so, are you involved? So you are, you mentioned the women's mentorship, correct? That you're pretty actively involved in.
It is, but I would also say, like, it's not a formal program. It's kind of a group that gets together. So that's something that we talk about a lot as an opportunity across the company. Is McDonald's, before I joined, McDonald's used to have a mentorship program. We don't anymore.
Okay. So no.
And it's encouraged to go and seek out mentors, but and people are generally very open and willing to do that. But I would say, it could be better if we put more structure around it and really kind of had people that were committed to being a mentor, kind of available to the broader company. We do more formal mentorship with our interns, which is interesting.
And so, and would you happen to think, or do you feel that you have more informal mentors than formal mentors, or do you feel that you have any at all?
I feel like I have a handful of informal mentors, and I try to identify those folks cross-functionally too. So I definitely have some informal mentors, but in all of them I could call and say, listen, I have this tough situation. I really need your advice on it. And I do that. What I don't feel like I have is that sponsor. And I feel that's kind of the tougher nut to crack, because there's different schools of thought on, should this person be in your function? Should they not be in your function? Do they play a role in your performance review? Is it totally separate from that? Should it be separate from that? Should they be there to really help guide you in your career path in a different way? So that's the one where I know I don't have that person.
Got it. Okay. And our last question is sort of three parts, but we'll just, sort of take it a piece at a time. But
Sure.
what are your personal and or professional goals?
Yeah. Well, I would say professionally right now, my next step is um, I want to move into more of a like broader strategic HR role. Um, I've been fortunate to grow a lot in the last year with focusing on workforce planning and our talent acquisition strategy for the restaurants. But in my next role, I do kind of want to pivot away from the pre-day one and think about more of the overarching employee experience. So that's kind of what's next. Longer term, um, I've been threatening to get out of HR for so long, and now I don't know, I like it a little bit more now that I'm doing, some more kind of, strategic work versus all execution. So I could see a future in HR. Operations is still on the table, but if I stick around in HR, I do want to get up to that like VP level position. Um, Personally, right now I'm trying to finish my MBA by the end of next year, and like I said earlier, a big reason for that is um, it's really just to be able to have a better understanding of how businesses operate, and uh, as I want to grow within a company, I want to be able to really talk the talk and understand kind of the economics behind things, financial components, have a more global view. So that's all important. But yeah, beyond that, personally, I want to start a family one day and somehow figure out how to build my career while while I have a family. And it's interesting. I mean, I can't say it for sure, but I one thing I kind of did personally and professionally was I've been very focused on getting as far as I possibly can in my career before I have kids,
Okay.
um, as well as um, starting school, because I know I'm going to end up having kids later, in my mid 30s. That's just what's going to happen. But I think ultimately it was the right choice for me.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And the second part to that question is, do you feel supported by your organization as it relates to these goals?
I do. We have a great tuition assistance program. So we have benefits that really encourage progressive education. Um, Ultimately, I do feel very supported by my organization. I I think on the whole, beyond my own organization, it's the, the challenge with working moms. It's just it's going to be it's going to be a tough one. And it's in going back to the inclusivity conversation. You know, do we give more work to the people that don't have kids? That's not super inclusive either. So it's a complex one. I think there's going to be a long way to go. I'm concerned about the impact that COVID had on women in the workforce, with 25% of women exiting, and it's setting us back, 50 plus years. But on the whole, our organization is, pretty supportive of women. I've seen worse work-life balances. So
Got it. Okay. And then essentially, do you feel that you are making progress towards your goals?
I do, yes. I absolutely do.
Okay. Um, and so that sort of wraps up the questions that I have for you, unless you have anything more as to how your particular company is, working to retain women in the workplace. You've certainly hit on a number of things just from your perspective. But if you have anything more, I would welcome it. But otherwise, I think we're done here.
If it's helpful, one thing that we do, which I think is pretty nice, is we implement a core hours system. So what you're really supposed to do is only schedule meetings between 9:30 and 3:30. Now, this got out of control in the last year and a half of working from home, but when we are in the office, we do this core hours system from 9:30 to 3:30, and it's it's great because if you need to come into the office earlier and you want to leave later, for whatever reason, shorten your commute, pick up your kids, it works. You need to come in late, you want to drop your kids off at school. It's really meant for those types of situations, and also helps, I think, cut down on some of the meetings because no one wants to have a meeting at 7 p.m. Um, so that I think has been something that um, helps with retention.
Got
We
it.
actually had very good retention prior to COVID, and now we're
Yeah.
struggling a bit.
Got it. Okay. No, that is neat. Okay. Well, again, thank you for your time.